responsibility, and I say that does half of the work or the investigation. What the police now needs to do, and other security agencies need to do, is one, investigate this claim. First, investigate the association or this body or this group, this ethnic group. Sorry, let me not say this ethnic group. This group that claim obviously a certain ethnic leaning. Investigate the claim and investigate, however, they intended to carry this out and carry out necessary arrests and the prosecutions. It is very worrying, right? Like if I were to read a quote from Otom himself, he said he wondered why an ethnic group would be shielded and allowed to use its militia arm to wreak havoc on perceived enemies. Now, even that statement in itself is near reckless, but that's the stage that we've gotten to, where different ethnic groups, you hear in the Southwest, you find one group saying they're breaking out a Yoruba nation. We all know what's going on with IPOB. This man, former militant in the Niger, Asari Dokuba, has come out making statements. There's a lot of agitation in many different parts of the country, and we can no longer go ignored. Now, if a sitting governor is coming out to say that Fulani bandits attacking him and are being shielded and protected, it is very worrying. It is extremely worrying. And I mean, this is where we are, and something needs to be done. We can't keep descending into this chaos.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you so very much, Tunde. Like you've mentioned, it's the governor had a taste of what everyday citizens in his state face, and he did allude to that in his comments in this report. We look forward to the full investigation. Since a group has come out to claim responsibility, would like to know the next steps that would be taken. All right, let's move on to this next one here, Mr. C, from the Punch newspaper. We've had no electricity for 6 years. Lagos communities tell Sanwo-Olu. Magbon, Alade, and 7 surrounding communities in Ibeju Lekki local government area have lamented that they have had no electricity for 6 years. The community made this known to the governor of Lagos State, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, during his 2-day working visit to free trade zones in the area. The affected towns are Magbon, Alade, Alasia, Orimedu, Eleko, Osa-Oroko, Ise, Akodo, Solu, all in Ibeju local government area.
Okay, thank you, Aya. So this fact was discovered when the governor paid a 2-day working visit to the free trade zone areas to determine and establish what was going on in those areas and what needed to be done. And the traditional ruler of the area, the Onileki of Lekki, made these facts known to him. And the governor expressed surprise that this was never brought to his attention, but undertook personally to ensure that it was resolved within the shortest possible time. Now, that is a very good step from the governor, and it shows that he's responsive to the needs and the problems of the people he's governing. But it also speaks to a larger problem, because this is not an isolated case, as the story may suggest, that if the governor were to go around or send a team around Lagos, he will be surprised to find out that there are numerous cases like this spread all over the state. Now, it is extremely shocking and surprising that for 6 years, these 6 towns did not have any power. And they claim that they've paid money, they've repaired all the transmission cables, bringing power into these towns, and there's still been no light. And then what is even more surprising is they say the distribution company responsible for providing electricity to the 7 towns has been unable to provide an explanation as to why there has been no light. Now, the discourse was set up to make money. That is their primary aim, after supplying power. So there has to be some sort of explanation, and I'm confident the governor will be able to not only extract an explanation, but he would also extract a firm commitment and a mobilization to site to provide the power, because there's a social contract between the states and the citizens it governs. And part of that social contract is that it will make available all utilities required for comfortable living and development, and power is one of them. So I'm happy for these communities that the governor is now aware of the plight, but the governor should also raise a team to go around Lagos, because clearly he can't do that alone and also attend to other duties of state. And he will find out very quickly that there are other areas of the state that suffer the same fate, and he should endeavor to use all the resources available to him to ensure that, as much as possible, every community is connected to public power. The rate of public power supply may vary, but that is the very least, that is the minimum standard that should be expected in the 21st century, given our peculiar circumstances.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. I also want to mention, when you say raise a team, I want to assume that there should already have been a team on ground to inform the governor about certain things, issues like this. For instance, on this occasion, the local government chairman was said to have also mentioned this. Is this not part of the responsibility? Is there a communication line between the local government chairman or, amongst Lagos government chairmen or Lagos State chairmen and the governor?
Okay, so it further speaks to the fact that the communication lines between the various local governments and the office of the governor need to be strengthened. And if there's a team already, then I dare say that they're not yet on top of the task, and they need to really roll up their sleeves and get to work, because this is something that needs to be sorted out before the next elections.
Absolutely. Oludele Gold from Lagos Island says the attack on Otom's life by the herdsmen should be condemned in the strongest tone. If governors with all the security details around them are not safe, then what's the fate of the ordinary citizens? The federal government should do the needful to salvage this country from becoming a failed state. Let's talk about another insecurity issue, Tunde, but this time with the elections, across the country. The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has vowed not to surrender to what it's called electoral banditry, aimed at discrediting the electoral process and returning predetermined outcomes. This statement was made by Mr. Festus Okoye, who is INEC's National Commissioner and Chairman, Information and Voter Education Committee. This was in speaking on the decision to indefinitely suspend the Saturday Ekiti State East State Constituency 1 election held in Ekiti State where violence erupted. Please take us through the story.
And I absolutely agree with this position. Look, it's a pretty straightforward position. It's a straightforward story to analyze. The state of insecurity is so pervasive that electoral officers cannot carry out their duties. Voters can't carry out their civic responsibility of being able to vote without undue pressure and or risk to their lives. And I dare say that even security operatives cannot operate within the area to provide the required security framework required to conduct elections properly. Not even to mention election observers or other observers, observing what has gone on. Then you don't have an election, quite simply. What you are left with is a farce. And there's no point in wasting the public purse in conducting a farce. So I totally agree with the rec. Now, the unfortunate thing and the situation is that there's no ideal and a perfect solution, because even this situation creates its own gaps, right? Where you cannot conduct elections because of the state of insecurity can still benefit certain people. So the election has been postponed indefinitely. Now, I'm sure that seat is held by someone, so it can still be in someone's benefit to create an environment that is, totally unconducive to conduct an election that will take him out of office, and then we have this situation. But I agree, first and foremost, you need to protect life and property. If you cannot conduct an election in an area because of insecurity and because of intimidation, then perhaps you shouldn't. But what I would like, what I would much, much more prefer is that we get a handle on, insecurity. This situation where we have, different groups, claiming autonomy and independence is not working for us.
No, it's not. Now, I'm glad you said that the better option would be to deal with insecurity rather than stopping important, nationwide activities because of this. When is it going to end? We're closing schools because of insecurity. We're stopping elections because of insecurity. People are not going out. I mean, when is it going to end, and what price would we have to pay to get to the point whereby we realize that we cannot continue like this? We want better response. Yeah.
We're so reactive. Many years ago, well over a decade ago now, a report came out by the US saying that by such and such a date, Nigeria will disintegrate. We need to be careful. Sometimes some prophecies are off by a couple of years. Yeah. So let's not just totally disregard it, because there are learnings in there, and there's certain things. When reports like that come out, it's not just necessarily to put you under pressure, but watch out for the things that they've highlighted and things that they've said. A number of those things are happening now. We need to ask ourselves what state things are in and if we're happy with them.
All right. Thank you so very much. Let me go to some comments. Shagun, going back to the local government chairman, he said, he's laughing that he doesn't see the usefulness. And then Yinka says, did I hear Unileki of Lekki? Anyway, it took the governor to be on a working visit to know about this. Who is representing them at the state and federal level? But only in Lagos, a local government chairman on the mainland lives in Lekki Phase 1. And then we have further comments, but I'll come to those shortly. Premium Times reports, Mr. C. SERAP, that's the Socioeconomic Rights and Accountability Project, has filed a lawsuit against the Senate President, Dr. Ahmed Lawan, and the Speaker of House of Representatives, Mr. Femi Gbajabiamila, over their failure to probe and to refer to appropriate anti-corruption agencies' allegations that 4.4 billion naira of public money budgeted for the National Assembly is missing, misappropriated, diverted, or stolen. This is documented in 3 annual audited reports by the Office of the Auditor General of the Federation. This report gives a detail of the suits that was filed. They're saying that they mention a number of contracts that were awarded without evidence of these, of the infrastructure delivered. Please take us through the story.
Okay, thank you, Ariel. So SERAP is a Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, and it's a group that has really fought for the interests of the Nigerian people, and over the years has proven itself to be a reliable party or partner in getting transparency and accountability from the government. So what happened was, we need to backtrack a bit. On the 30th of January 2021, SERAP wrote a letter to the Senate President and the Speaker of the House of Reps, requesting that they use their good offices to investigate allegations that 4.4 billion naira of public money budgeted for the National Assembly had been misappropriated or stolen or diverted. Apparently, nothing was done because on Friday, SERAP filed a suit, and they relied on the audited reports of the Auditor General of the Federation for the 2015, 2017, and 2018 financial years of the National Assembly accounts. Now, there's no mention of the 2016 audited report, so we can imply or infer that there were no issues with that report. Now, a look at the concerns raised by the Auditor General of the Federation points to a serial trend of gross impunity. Officials, individuals associated with the National Assembly just doing what they like. And I will just give you a snapshot of what they did. Now, in 2015, the National Assembly spends the sum of 115,947,000 naira without any documents. Where is that done? Then another sum of 158,193,000 was spent as cash advances to 17 members of staff between January and June 2015. That amount is yet to be retired. This is 2021, for crying out Are the individuals dead? Have they disappeared from the face of life? So where are they and where's the money? Then more importantly, the House of Reps reportedly spent 624,377,000 to buy 48 utility vehicles. 14 of those vehicles were never bought or supplied, and the 34 that were presumably bought were never made available for verification or inspection.
So no accountability.
Sorry?
No accountability.
Nothing. Then, and there's one where money was paid, 1.3 billion. Yes, that is the Senate. The Senate account also reportedly shows that the sum of 1.3 billion was spent on store items without any documents. Furthermore, the office of the AGF was denied access to the said store and to the Senate's records. There are more allegations, very disturbing, and it's just sad that there's no accountability, there's gross impunity, and the leadership appears not to be indifferent to these matters, forgetting that they are elected representatives of the people. Now, we will continue to go round and round in this vicious cycle of gross impunity and nothing happening, because in Nigeria, very few people are made to face the consequences of their actions. If the National Assembly was a private company, funds will not be spent without any document. And it's really insulting to the collective intelligence of Nigerians that you spend money without any document. At least be seen to make the effort when stealing, to put up some sort of document. The other day, it was about 900 millionaire contracts for pencils and erasers. Until we decide collectively as a people to start dealing severely with people who perpetrate these acts, I regret with a lot of sadness that we will continue to read these stories, we will continue to analyze the stories, and we will continue to move on pretending that all is well.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. C. Frank asks an important question very quickly. He says, does Serap's case, any of their cases ever get get to a logical conclusion? It must really be frustrating for them.
Yes, they have won quite a few. It's just that I'm unable right now to give you the details. They have won quite a number of cases at the federal.
That's brilliant. Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. Katsina moves to reform Almajiri system, identifies 106,000 pupils, this day newspaper. I think, Tunde, one of the very important parts of this publication is data. You know, we keep talking about the fact that we don't have numbers, we just estimate, or we don't even have, figures of what we're dealing with in terms of situations in Nigeria. However, the Katsina state government has identified 106,000 Almajiri pupils across 5,558 Islamic schools in the 34 local government areas of the state in a bid to modernize the Almajiri system of education and avert the menace of street begging in the state.
It's to address way more than the menace of street begging, to be honest. So we've heard many of these things before, but again, very little detail or very little meat on exactly how they intend to reform them. Essentially, all I've heard from here is they're going to repatriate some Almajiri kids that are not, from the states, which is a small fraction, and those who are from Niger Republic, again, a small fraction. There needs to be an entire rethink as to the approach for education, in the North. Education is the bedrock and is the first step towards, development. Nothing stands in isolation. All this insecurity we complain and we talk about today doesn't stand in isolation. There's an interconnected relationship to, corruption and, misappropriation of funds, the neglect of education, and then you have insecurity and a bunch of other things. So it's good that at least, they're making the sounds, but you need to move a bit more from the sounds. The educational system and system for, looking after kids, in the North probably needs it needs an overhaul as regards, education. There's nothing wrong with them being in Islam, in religious schools, in the Quranic schools, but perhaps they can start to add and introduce other things within the curriculum that will leave these children with, vocations, skills that they can then, take on and, contribute to society and not end up on the streets begging.
Absolutely. All right, thank you very much. Let's move on to this headline from this day newspaper, Mr. C. ECWA Anglican deny allowing hijab in Christian schools. We're back on this story. Last week, I think we had 2 days of the headlines on this particular matter. And of course, they are developing details and we will continue to report it until we get to the end of this. Authorities of the Evangelical Church Winning All, ECWA, and the Church of Nigeria Anglican Communion have refuted the allegations that they have conceded to the directive of Kwara State government for the use of hijab in their schools. ECWA schools, Ojaiya and Bishop Smith Memorial College, both in Ilorin, were among the 10 schools in the eye of the storm over the hijab controversy. ECWA describes the news as completely misleading, untrue, and provocative, adding, "This is a mere propaganda."
Thank you, Aaron. So the Evangelical Church for Winning All in Africa and the Church of Nigeria Anglican Communion have come out to refute statements or suggestions that they've complied with the directive of the Kwara State government that female Muslim students in Christian-owned, Christian-started schools should be allowed to wear the hijab into the schools. And they've predicated their positions on the fact that the matter is still before the Supreme Court, and the issue before the Supreme Court is about the ownership of the schools. They claim that the issue of the hijab was reportedly introduced by Muslim groups, that they are not interested in the hijab. Their concern is about ownership, and that the directive of the Kwara State government flies in the face of established authorities, that once a matter has been submitted to court for determination of issues, none of the parties before the court should resort to self-help. Now, the directive by the Kwara State government amounts to self-help because, in a sense, you are using the coercive powers of state to compel a party you are against in court to comply with your order when it is possible that the final judgment delivered by the court will be completely in opposition to the directive you've given. And they are saying that as a government that has sworn and taken oaths to defend the law and obey the rule of law, that it should await the outcome of that judgment rather than rush to enforce a directive, which in their opinion has no backing in law. Now, like I said last week on this issue, this issue of the hijab, whether it can be worn, whether it cannot be worn, is just a symptom that there are deeper issues. There are deeper issues at play here. And clearly, one of the deeper issues is ownership. Now, until that question is decided finally by the Supreme Court, which incidentally is the last court of the land, the highest court of the land, after the Supreme Court judgment, that's it. Everybody just abide to whatever decision it gives. How come we cannot live in unity with one another? In the 70s and the 80s, herdsmen and farmers cohabited peacefully. Same thing with Muslim and Christian students everywhere. So why is it suddenly a cause of concern? In the 70s and the 80s, there were Muslim students who attended Christian schools, who attended public schools. I don't recall reading that wearing the hijab was of great concern to them. And I'm not discounting or discountenancing the fact that it is part of their religious culture, it's part of their religious identity. And Nigeria is a secular state, or on paper, it is a secular state. But it then leads to a bigger question. So, yes, under the Constitution, we have the right to identify with the religious beliefs.
Yes.
But here's a question for everyone to think about, to ruminate on. What if there's a student who is a believer of one of the traditional religions, and part of their religious identity is to wear cowrie, shells, beads, and all sorts of traditional items, animal skin, on their chests or in public? Would you deny that student the right to identify with his chosen religion?
All right.
Would a student be allowed to openly wear charms on the ground that it is part of his religious identity? So these are questions for us to think about.
All right, I will have to take that question to our 9 o'clock Lagos Talks 981 conversation, and that would be good to hear people's thoughts on this one. Tunde, I'd like for you to touch on very quickly, even though we're out of time, on this headline: Senate queries finance ministry over unaccounted 2.8 billion naira service-wide vote. The second story of the kind this morning. Please tell us what's going on here.
It's absolutely embarrassing for the finance ministry. And essentially, and this is Esther code. So usually when you travel or you go, if you look at what the money has been spent on, it's frivolous. And then they cannot even have the good decency, even if you want to chop the money in let's put the balance that way, to receipt them. They're unreceipted. It's the laziest approach. And it's because there is no accountability. There is no consequence. No one cares. Like I said earlier, insecurity doesn't stand in isolation. We're all wondering and saying, how do we deal with this big issue? It's step by step. The way to eat an elephant is a bite at a time. Start to deal with all this, with ridiculous corruption. Now, you can't deal with all corruption, but let people even work for it. This level of corruption doesn't make sense. Deal with corruption, focus on education. Our insecurity at the root of the socio-economic problem. Let's stop wasting our money going into private pockets and put them to socio-economic causes. It will start to improve. We'll see the effects, not immediately. It's a long-term game. Down the line, it will impact on our security. The insecurity we're suffering now is the neglect and the rubbish that we've allowed grow in the past. And this is part of it, blatant.
Thank you. Thank you so very much, Tunde. Excellent. Thank you very much to our analysts and to all our listeners. A big thanks to Mr. C. Mr. C is at Mr. C on Twitter, and Tunde is at Big Koofs on Twitter. Find us at Smooth981FM on Twitter. Use the hashtag FreshlyPressed981. Please do join us at 9 o'clock for Lagos Talks 981. We will be detailing these stories and opening the phone lines to get you talking and expressing your thoughts on some of the biggest stories making the headlines across Nigeria. I'm Ayo Myra Essay in Freshly Pressed 981. Join us again tomorrow morning, same time. Smooth Breakfast Show continues with the Locker Room 981 in about 13 minutes with Tega. I thank you all very much. Thank you. That was a good
all right.
test. Thank you.
All right. No worries.
Thank you.
Yeah, I put it in the. I don't know if you're able to see chat. I put it then after the NAS story on corruption that we should do the finance ministry one.
Oh, I didn't see it. That would
have you didn't see it. Sorry.
I didn't see that.
Yeah. No worries. All right, then take care.
Bye.
Bye.